The space above Earth suddenly filled with ships. Thousands and thousands of them, appearing in bright flashes of light as they dropped out of hyperspace. The ships were huge, dark, and covered in weapons that could destroy planets. Admiral Ziegler stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue world below. His forearms crossed behind his back as he watched his fleet take position. 12,000 ships from 47 different species, all under his command. This was the biggest war fleet the Galactic Dominion had ever put together. "Sir," his second-in-command said, "all ships are in attack formation. We can begin the bombardment on your order." Ziegler nodded slowly. In 300 years of conquest, this moment always felt the same. The fear from the planet below would start soon. Desperate messages begging for mercy. Offers of complete surrender. Sometimes the target species would try to fight back with their primitive weapons, but it never lasted long. "Open a channel to the surface," he commanded. "Let's get this over with." But something was wrong. Instead of the usual panicked radio chatter from the planet, Ziegler heard something else. Something he had never heard before in all his years of conquest. Laughter. "Are you getting this?" A human voice said over the radio, clearly amused. 12,000 ships. That's got to be some kind of record. Another voice joined in. "I count 47 different ship types. Look at that big one in the middle. It's the size of Manhattan. Someone should take pictures. My kid's doing a school project on alien invasions." Ziegler's face twisted in confusion. His intelligence reports said humans were a young species, barely 200 years past their first steam engines. They had just discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They should be terrified. "Humans," he growled to his communications officer. "Open all channels. Broadcast the standard surrender message." The message went out in dozens of languages. "People of Earth, you are surrounded by the fleet of the Galactic Dominion. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses are useless. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make your planet burn for 1,000 years." The human response came back almost immediately. A cheerful female voice, speaking with the calm confidence of someone ordering coffee. "Hello there. This is Admiral Chun of the Earth Defense Force. Thanks for making the trip all the way out here. That must have taken months. Are you folks hungry? We've got plenty of snacks if you want to come down and chat about this." Silence filled the bridge of Ziegler's ship. His crew stared at their instruments, trying to understand what they had just heard. "Did she just—" His weapons officer began. "Offer us food?" The communications officer finished. Ziegler slammed his fist on the command console. "Run another scan. There must be hidden weapons. Defensive platforms. Something." The scans came back showing the same thing as before. A few orbital stations. Some small defense satellites that could barely scratch the paint on his ships. No massive fleet hiding behind the moon. No planet-killing weapons charging up for a surprise attack. Down on Earth, the humans seemed to be having a party. "Look, Sarah, you can see the alien ships through the telescope." "Mom, can we stay up late to watch the space battle? I'm live streaming this." We've got 10 million viewers already. News broadcasts showed crowds gathering in cities around the world. Instead of running and hiding, people were pointing at the sky and taking selfies with the alien fleet in the background. "This is unbelievable," a news reporter said, standing in front of a crowd in New York City. "The largest alien invasion force in recorded history has just arrived, and people are treating it like a festival. I'm getting reports of viewing parties on every continent." Ziegler watched the human news feeds with growing anger. "They're mocking us," he snarled. His tactical officer, a nervous creature from a species conquered decades ago, spoke up quietly. "Sir, perhaps we should reconsider. In my experience, species only act this confident when they have something we don't know about. Coward. Ziegler snapped. Look at their technology. Look at their ships. We have weapons that can turn their sun into a black hole, and they're offering us sandwiches. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his mind. Every species reacted the same way to the arrival of the Dominion fleet. Fear, panic, desperate attempts at negotiation or futile last stands. Never laughter. Never casual invitations to lunch. Admiral Chun's voice came over the radio again. I hope you don't mind waiting a bit. We're just getting things ready down here. Should be quite a show. Getting what ready? Ziegler demanded, speaking directly into his communicator. Oh, you'll see, Chun replied cheerfully. We sent word to some friends. They should be here soon. In the meantime, are you sure you wouldn't like some coffee? We make excellent coffee. Friends. The word made Ziegler's blood run cold. His intelligence reports showed no human allies. No treaties with other species. Humans had barely left their own solar system. Sir, his sensor operator called out, voice shaking slightly. I'm detecting some unusual readings at the edge of the system. What kind of readings? Hyperspace distortions. Very faint, but getting stronger. Ziegler felt the first real worry he had experienced in decades. How many ships? I can't tell, sir. The readings are all over the place. Could be one ship, could be 100. Or what? Or a lot more than that. Down on Earth, Admiral Chun was talking to reporters outside what looked like a military base. She was an elderly human woman with short gray hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, not a military commander facing the destruction of her world. Admiral, a reporter asked, Earth's defense forces are clearly no match for this invasion fleet. Don't you think we should surrender to avoid unnecessary casualties? Chun chuckled, the same warm laugh that had been driving Ziegler crazy for the past hour. Oh, honey, we're not planning to fight them. That would be rude. They came all this way for a demonstration, and we hate to disappoint guests. What kind of demonstration? The kind that shows what happens when you pick on someone's little sister, Chum said, winking at the camera. Ziegler stared at the screen. What does that mean? What did she mean by that? His sensor operator's voice cracked with tension. Sir, the hyperspace readings are getting much stronger. Whatever's coming, it's big. Around the Dominion fleet, his ship captains were starting to report strange readings on their own sensors. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting at the edges of the solar system, and through it all, the humans kept laughing. Admiral Ziegler decided to show the humans what they were dealing with. He ordered his weapons crews to target a large asteroid floating near Earth's moon. It was the standard demonstration. Destroy something big and obvious to prove the fleet's power. Fire the main cannon, he commanded. A beam of pure energy lanced out from his flagship. The asteroid, which had been there for millions of years, simply vanished in a flash of light and superheated gas. The explosion lit up space for several seconds. Ziegler waited for the screams of terror from Earth. Instead, he got applause. Wow. Did you see that? A human voice said over the radio. That was incredible. The energy dispersal pattern was perfect. I'm getting some amazing readings on this, another voice added. The beam temperature must have been at least 50 million degrees. Someone upload that to YouTube. That's definitely going viral. Down on Earth, crowds were gathering in public squares, pointing at the sky where the asteroid had been. Children pressed their faces against windows, hoping to see more explosions. News reporters were interviewing scientists about the aliens' weapon technology. This is fascinating, a human scientist was saying on live television. The energy beam showed characteristics of both plasma and particle acceleration. Whoever built these ships clearly understands physics better than we do. So, we're doomed? The news anchor asked. Oh, probably, the scientist replied cheerfully. But what an amazing way to learn about advanced physics. Ziegther's communications officer looked up from his station. Sir, I'm monitoring hundreds of human broadcasts. They're discussing our weapons like they're watching a fireworks display. And the military responses? Nothing, sir. No mobilization. No evacuation orders. Their defense forces are just watching. This made no sense. In 3 centuries of conquest, Ziegther had never seen anything like it. Species either panicked and surrendered immediately, or they fought back with everything they had. They didn't treat galactic conquest like entertainment. His tactical advisor, a thin blue creature called Kalex, approached the command chair. Admiral, my species has some experience with humans. Perhaps we should consider retreat. Ziegther spun around. Your species was conquered in 6 hours, Kalex. What experience could you possibly have? Trade negotiations, sir. Humans have been visiting our worlds for the past 20 years. They're different from other species. Different how? Kalex hesitated. They make friends everywhere they go. They learn languages. They share technology. They ask questions about our history and culture. Most species just want resources or territory. Humans seem to want, he paused, searching for the word. What? Conversation. Before Ziegther could respond, his sensor operator called out again. Sir, I'm detecting probe ships at the edge of the system. Small, fast, definitely not human design. How many? 12 so far. No, wait, 36. They're just sitting there, watching us. Ziegther felt a chill run down his spine. Unknown ships meant unknown technology. Unknown technology meant unknown threats. Can you identify their origin? Negative, sir. I've never seen designs like these. On Earth, Admiral Chun was holding another press conference. She looked completely relaxed, like someone discussing weekend plans rather than the potential destruction of her planet. Admiral Chun, a reporter called out. Our telescopes are detecting unknown ships entering the solar system. Are these the friends you mentioned? Chun smiled. Some of them. We sent out quite a few invitations. It takes time for everyone to arrive. How many friends are we talking about? Oh, you know how it is with parties. You invite a few people, and they invite a few people, and before you know it, half the neighborhood shows up. Another reporter pushed forward. What makes you so confident these aliens will help us? Because that's what friends do, Chun replied simply. When someone's picking on your buddy, you show up. But Earth has only had contact with a few alien species. How could we have so many allies? Chen's smile widened. Have you ever noticed how humans can't go anywhere without making friends? We sent out exploration ships 50 years ago. Did you think they just took pictures and came home? The implications hit Ziegther like a plasma blast. While the Dominion had been conquering through fear and intimidation, the humans had been exploring through diplomacy and friendship. How many species had they contacted? How many alliances had they formed? Get me intelligence reports on all known human contact, he ordered. I want to know every species they've talked to. The reports came back within minutes, and they were deeply troubling. Humans had made contact with over 60 different species in the past 50 years. They had trade agreements with 30 of them. They had cultural exchange programs with 20. They had mutual defense treaties with... How many mutual defense treaties? Ziegther demanded. His intelligence officer checked the data twice before answering. 43, sir. The bridge fell silent. 43 species with formal agreements to defend Earth. That didn't count in formal alliances. Species who might help just because they liked humans. Or anyone who had been waiting for an excuse to oppose the Dominion. Sir, The sensor operator's voice was getting higher with stress. I'm detecting more ships. A lot more ships. They're coming from 6 different directions. Numbers? I can't get an accurate count. They're arriving in waves. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Kalex stepped closer to the command chair. Admiral, with respect, perhaps we should consider negotiation. Negotiation? Ziegther roared. The Dominion does not negotiate. We conquer. Yes, sir. That's worked well against species who were alone and afraid. But humans... Kalex gestured toward Earth, where more viewing parties were starting up. Humans are neither alone nor afraid. On the main screen, human news broadcasts showed crowds celebrating around the world. In Beijing, people were setting up telescopes to watch the alien ships. In London, pubs were offering Invasion Day specials. In New York, someone had started selling T-shirts with pictures of alien ships and the words, "I survived first contact and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. This is madness." Ziegther muttered. His communications officer looked up nervously. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Chun again. Put her on screen. Chun appeared on the view screen, still smiling. Behind her, human and alien figures were working together at what looked like a command center. Ziegther could see species he recognized, and several he didn't. Admiral Ziegther, Chun said pleasantly. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. We've got friends arriving from all over the galaxy. This might be a good time to discuss terms. Terms? Ziegther sputtered. You're surrounded by the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Actually, Chun replied, checking what looked like a datapad. According to my math, you're about to be outnumbered 3-1. And that's just counting the ships that have arrived so far. The sensor operator's voice cracked. Sir, she's right. Current count shows over 30,000 ships taking position around the system. More arriving every minute. Chun continued speaking, as if discussing the weather. Now, we can do this the hard way, with lots of shooting and explosions and people getting hurt. Or we can do this the easy way, with conversation and maybe some really good food. Your choice. Ziegther stared at the human woman, who had just casually informed him that his unstoppable conquest fleet was about to become badly outnumbered by a collection of species that should barely know each other. How? He whispered. Chun heard him. How? What, dear? How did you do this? How did you turn half the galaxy against us? Chun's expression grew serious for the first time. We didn't turn anyone against you, Admiral. We just gave him a choice. The hyperspace rifts opened like flowers made of lightning. One after another, across the entire solar system, space itself tore open to reveal what lay beyond. Ships poured through the tiers in reality, not dozens or hundreds, but thousands upon thousands. Admiral Ziegther watched his tactical display change from confident blue to worried yellow to desperate red as more and more enemy contacts appeared. His fleet of 12,000 ships had seemed unstoppable an hour ago. Now it looked like a small island in an ocean of hostile vessels. Identification on the new arrivals? He asked, his voice much quieter than before. His intelligence officer was working frantically at his station. Sir, I'm seeing ships from... This can't be right. What is it? The Quarian Independence Navy, sir. But the Quarians were wiped out 15 years ago. That's impossible. I'm also detecting Zentari collective vessels and Etherian light cruisers. And, sir, I'm seeing ships from species we thought were extinct. On the main screen, the human Admiral Chun was still talking to reporters, but now she was surrounded by beings from a dozen different species. Ziegther recognized some of them, rebel leaders the Dominion had been hunting for decades. The Fourth Fleet should be arriving any moment now, Chun was saying. They've been exploring the outer rim for 30 years. Made quite a few friends out there. As if summoned by her words, another massive hyperspace rift opened directly between Earth and Ziegther's flagship. What emerged made his heart skip several beats. A human dreadnought, 5 kilometers long, painted in peaceful blue and white. But it wasn't alone. Around it flew escort ships from species Ziegther had never seen before. Sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Crystalline ships that looked grown rather than built. Mechanical constructs that pulsed with unknown energy. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "The human ship is hailing us. Put it through." A new human face appeared on screen, younger than Chun, with dark skin and bright eyes. She wore the uniform of what looked like an exploration service, not a military. "Greetings, Dominion Fleet," she said cheerfully. "I'm Captain Martinez of the Ed's Peaceful Contact. We got Admiral Chun's message and came as quickly as we could. Sorry we're late. We were helping the Spiral Arm Collective set up their new government." Spiral Arm Collective? Ziegther had never heard of them. "Oh, you wouldn't know them. They're from the far side of the galaxy. Lovely people, once you help them overthrow their dictators. They send their regards, by the way." Ziegther felt the last of his confidence crumbling. "How many ships do you have?" Captain Martinez tilted her head thoughtfully. "Let's see. We started with the 4th Exploration Fleet. That's about 800 ships. Then the Quarians wanted to come along. They're still a bit upset about that whole genocide thing you tried to pull. The Centauri Collective sent a few thousand vessels. The Free Etherian Navy insisted on helping. Oh, and we picked up some new friends from the Andromeda Contact Expedition." "Andromeda?" Ziegther's voice was barely a whisper. "Long story. Turns out, when you treat people nicely, they introduce you to their friends. And their friends have friends. It's amazing how it spreads." The tactical display was now completely red. Ziegther's fleet was surrounded on all sides by an armada that outnumbered them 5-1 and growing. Ships were still arriving through hyperspace rifts that opened like windows to distant stars. "Sir," Kelek said quietly, "perhaps this would be a good time to consider surrender. The Dominion does not surrender." Ziegther roared, but his voice lacked conviction. As if she had heard him, Admiral Chun's voice came over the radio. "Now, Admiral, there's no shame in admitting when you're beaten. We're all civilized beings here. How about we sit down and talk about this?" "Talk?" Ziegther snarled. "What is there to talk about? You've brought an army to destroy us." "Actually," Captain Martinez interrupted, "we brought an army to save you." "Save us from what?" "From yourselves," Chun replied. "Admiral, do you know what happens to your own people under Dominion rule?" Images appeared on Ziegther's screen. Dominion worlds where the common people lived in poverty while military elites controlled everything. Slave camps on conquered planets. Species driven to extinction for the crime of resisting. "These are our worlds," Ziegther said defensively. "Our people, are they happy?" Martinez asked simply. The question hit Ziegther like a physical blow. In 3 centuries of conquest, no one had ever asked him that. Happiness wasn't the point. Order was the point. Control was the point. Fear was the point. "Look at this," Chun said, and new images appeared. Clarion children playing in schools on human-protected worlds. Former Dominion slaves working as free citizens in Centauri factories. Etherian artists creating beautiful works alongside human musicians. "This is what we offer," Martinez said. "Not conquest. Not slavery. Partnership. Trade. Friendship. A chance for everyone to be better than they were before." "Sir," Ziegther's communications officer reported, "I'm getting messages from our own fleet. Several ship captains are requesting permission to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Defection, sir. Ziegler spun around to stare at his crew. These were soldiers who had served the Dominion for decades. They had conquered world after world in his name. Why? He demanded. Kalex stepped forward. Because they're tired, sir. Tired of conquest. Tired of fear. Tired of making enemies everywhere we go. He gestured toward the main screen, where humans and aliens were working together. Look at them, Admiral. They're not afraid of each other. They're not plotting against each other. They're just happy. Happiness is weakness. Is it? Kalex asked. Then, why are we losing to happy people? Before Ziegler could answer, alarms began blaring throughout his ship. His tactical officer looked up in shock. Sir, the Caliph squadron is breaking formation. They're moving toward the human lines. Stop them. Sir, they're not responding to our signals. They're requesting asylum. On the view screen, Chun smiled sadly. Admiral, this doesn't have to be a battle. It can be a rescue. We can help your people build something better than the Dominion ever was. And if I refuse, then we'll free them anyway, Martinez said simply. But we'd rather do it with your help than over your dead body. Ziegler looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. But for the first time in his long military career, he didn't know what those orders should be. Outside his ship, the largest fleet in galactic history waited to see if the Dominion would choose to join the future or be left behind by it. The first shots of the battle came from the Dominion side, but not from Admiral Ziegler's flagship. A squadron of hegemony destroyers opened fire on the defecting Caliph ships, trying to stop them from reaching human lines. All ships, this is Admiral Chun, came the calm voice over all radio channels. Peacekeeping protocols are now in effect. Disable, don't destroy. Save lives, don't take them. What followed was unlike any battle Ziegler had ever seen. Human ships moved to protect the defecting Caliph vessels, but their weapons fired strange blue beams that shut down engines instead of exploding hulls. When Dominion ships tried to ram the escaping vessels, human frigates used tractor beams to pull them away from collision courses. Sir, Ziegler's weapons officer reported, the humans are using non-lethal weapons. They're disabling our ships, not destroying them. They're making us look like monsters, Kalex observed quietly. He was right. On every screen in the solar system, billions of beings watched as Dominion forces tried to kill their own defecting soldiers, while humans risked their lives to save them. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Return fire, Ziegler ordered. All weapons, maximum power. His fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams that could crack moons lanced out toward the human formations. For a moment, Ziegler felt hope. These weapons had conquered 1,000 worlds, but the human ships didn't fight like anything in his tactical manuals. Instead of forming battle lines, they scattered like leaves in a storm. Small, fast ships darted between his massive dreadnoughts, too quick to target effectively. When his ships did hit their targets, the humans had shield technology that absorbed most of the damage. How are they doing this? He demanded. Sir, his tactical officer said, their technology appears to be a combination of dozens of different species innovations. They've taken the best ideas from everyone and combined them. While his own ships tried to force their way through human lines, Ziegler watched as more and more of his fleet simply stopped fighting. The Vorthan cruisers powered down their weapons and waited for human ships to escort them to safety. An entire regiment of conscripted soldiers from a species he couldn't even pronounce activated emergency beacons, asking for rescue. Sir, his communications officer called out. Captain Martinez is requesting permission to board. What? She wants to come aboard our ship, alone. She says she has something important to show you. Ziegler almost laughed. She wants to board my flagship? During a battle? Yes, sir. She's waiting in a small shuttle just outside our weapons range. It was either bravery or insanity. Probably both. Against every military regulation he'd ever learned. Ziegler found himself curious about what the human woman wanted to show him. Let her come aboard. Full security escort. 20 minutes later, Captain Martinez walked onto his bridge wearing a simple blue uniform and a friendly smile. She looked around with obvious interest, like a tourist visiting a museum. Impressive ship, she said to Ziegler. Very imposing. You wanted to show me something, he growled. I do. Martinez pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display. These are the planets your forces conquered in the past 50 years. The display showed dozens of worlds, each marked with Dominion symbols. Now, Martinez continued, these are the same worlds today. The display changed. Some planets still showed Dominion control, but others had different markings. Free governments, independent republics, allied territories. You've lost 12 worlds in the past 5 years, Martinez said. Not through conquest, but through liberation. People choosing freedom over fear. Traitors and rebels, Ziegler spat. Families, Martinez corrected. Parents who want their children to grow up free. Teachers who want to educate instead of indoctrinate. Artists who want to create instead of destroy. She touched the device again, and the hologram showed something new. A Dominion world where humans had established diplomatic contact. The images showed former slaves working in modern factories, earning wages for their labor. Children from conquered species attending schools alongside Dominion citizens. Mixed communities where different races live together peacefully. This is what we offer, Martinez said. Not the destruction of your empire, but its transformation into something better. Why? Ziegler asked, and he genuinely wanted to know. Why do you care what happens to us? Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because we've been where you are now. Impossible. Humans have never conquered anyone. Not other species, Martinez agreed. But we've conquered each other. For thousands of years, humans fought wars over skin color, religion, territory, resources. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. The hologram changed again, showing images from human history. Wars, slavery, genocide, environmental destruction. We learned the hard way that conquest doesn't make you stronger, Martinez continued. It makes you weaker. Every enemy you create is a potential ally you've lost. Every world you rule through fear is a world that will eventually rebel. So you gave up war? We gave up conquest, Martinez corrected. We still have weapons. We still have armies. But we use them to protect people, not control them. As if to prove her point, alarms began sounding on the bridge. Another squadron of Dominion ships was trying to escape to human lines, and loyal Dominion forces were moving to intercept. Admiral Chun to all human vessels, came the voice over the radio. Priority rescue mission. I don't want to lose a single life today if we can help it. On the tactical display, Ziegler watched human ships throw themselves into danger to protect defecting Dominion soldiers. A human cruiser took heavy fire while shielding a transport full of families. A squadron of human fighters deliberately drew enemy fire away from a damaged Dominion frigate. They're risking their lives for our people, he said, almost to himself. Of course they are, Martinez replied. That's what friends do. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Ziegler began to understand what he had spent 3 centuries fighting against. Not just other species, but the very idea that the galaxy could be something better than a collection of conquerors and conquered. What happens if I surrender? He asked quietly. You help us build something new, Martinez said simply. A galaxy where strength comes from cooperation, not domination. where different species work together instead of against each other. And if I don't? Martinez looked sad. Then we save your people anyway. But it would be better if we did it together. Ziegler looked around his bridge at the crew that had served him faithfully for decades. They were waiting for his decision. Outside, the battle continued as more ships defected every hour. How do I know you won't just become the new conquerors? He asked. Because, Martinez said, gesturing toward the ongoing rescue operations, we're too busy making friends to make enemies. 6 months later, Admiral Ziegler stood on the observation deck of the space station the humans had built where his flagship used to be. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see something that would have been impossible to imagine during his years of conquest. Ships from 40 different species worked together in the orbital shipyards, building not weapons of war, but vessels of exploration and trade. Clarion engineers worked alongside former Dominion technicians. Etherian artists painted beautiful murals on the hulls of cargo ships. Human children attended schools with young beings from a dozen worlds. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, said a familiar voice behind him. Ziegler turned to see Admiral Chun approaching, carrying 2 cups of what humans called coffee. She offered one to him, and he accepted it gratefully. The bitter human drink had become something of an addiction for him. Some days it feels like a lifetime, he admitted. Other days it feels like yesterday. Any regrets? Ziegler considered the question carefully. His surrender had not been popular with all Dominion forces. Some die-hard loyalists had fought to the end, forcing human and allied forces to disable their ships and rescue their crews. Others had retreated to the Outer Rim, where they continued to resist the new order. I regret how long it took me to understand, he said finally. How many people suffered because I believed conquest was strength? Chun nodded. We all have things we regret. The important thing is what we do next. Through the window, they watched a ceremony taking place on the main platform. Representatives from 30 species were signing trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. Not the kind of forced treaties the Dominion had imposed, but agreements between equals. The reformed Hegemony Navy is ready for its first mission, Ziegler reported. My people are eager to help with the liberation of the outer colonies. Still feels strange, calling it liberation instead of conquest? Everything feels strange, Ziegler admitted. But good strange. When I was conquering worlds, there was always another enemy to fight, another territory to claim. Now, he gestured toward the bustling station around them. Now there's always something to build. Admiral Chun smiled. That's the difference between making enemies and making friends. Enemies eventually run out. Friends just keep multiplying. A young human technician approached them, carrying a datapad. Excuse me, Admiral Chun? We just received word from the Andromeda Contact mission. They've established communication with 3 new species. All friendly so far. Chun's eyes lit up. Excellent. Tell Captain Rodriguez to send our standard friendship package. Cultural exchange materials, basic trade goods, and plenty of chocolate. Oh, and have someone prepare guest quarters. They'll probably want to send a delegation. As the technician hurried away, Ziegler shook his head in amazement. You're already planning to make friends with beings from another galaxy? Why not? Chun asked. The universe is a big place. There's room for everyone. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The main display screen activated, showing Captain Martinez aboard the exploration vessel Peaceful Contact. Behind her, Ziegler could see beings from species he still didn't recognize. Admiral Chun, Admiral Ziegler, Martinez said, grinning widely. I wanted to give you an update from the Spiral Arm Collective. The new government is working out beautifully. They've established democratic institutions on 12 worlds so far. Any problems? Chun asked. Just one, They want to name their new capital city after you. Chun laughed. Tell them I'm honored, but they should name it after themselves. It's their achievement, not mine. After the communication ended, Ziegler found himself studying the human woman who had somehow managed to transform his understanding of power. I have to ask, he said, how did your species learn to do this? To turn enemies into friends so easily? Chun was quiet for a moment, looking out at the busy station. We almost destroyed ourselves, she said simply. Wars, hatred, fear of differences. We came very close to making our planet uninhabitable. What changed? We realized we had a choice, Chun replied. We could spend our energy fighting each other, or we could spend it solving problems together. Fighting each other just created more problems. Working together. She gestured toward the station where dozens of species collaborated peacefully. Working together made everything better. It sounds simple when you say it like that. The best ideas usually are, Chun said. But simple doesn't mean easy. It took us generations to learn how to cooperate instead of compete. How to celebrate differences instead of fear them. A group of young beings from various species ran past them, laughing as they chased each other through the station corridors. Among them, Ziegler spotted children from his own species playing alongside human, Quillarian, and Etherian youngsters. They make it look easy, he observed. Children always do, Chun agreed. They haven't learned yet that they're supposed to be afraid of each other. As the day shift ended and the night shift began, beings from across the galaxy continued their work. The galaxy was still vast and full of challenges. There were still conflicts to resolve, problems to solve, and new discoveries to make. But now they faced these challenges together. Admiral Chun, Ziegler said, as they prepared to leave the observation deck. What happens when we've contacted every species in the galaxy? When everyone is part of this alliance? Chun smiled, the same warm expression that had driven him to distraction 6 months ago, when he thought he was arriving to conquer a primitive world. Then we start on the next galaxy, she said simply. The universe is full of people who might need friends. As they walked through the corridors of the station, past laboratories where former enemies worked side by side, past cafeterias where beings shared meals and stories, past schools where children learned about cooperation instead of conquest. Ziegler realized that humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than advanced technology or military might. They had given it hope. And hope, as it turned out, was the most powerful weapon in the universe.